Stephen Crook knows what it means to face life's storms, from deployment overseas to the invisible battles of PTSD and transitioning back to family and civilian life. After more than 20 years of service, he founded Through the Storm Apparel, a mission-driven brand supporting veterans and raising awareness around mental health and suicide prevention. In this conversation, Stephen shares how military life shaped his leadership, why therapy and routines are essential to his balance, and what it really means to redefine identity after the uniform comes off. We also explore how his brand is giving back through bold messaging and a unique donation model that empowers veterans across the country. This is a grounded, honest, and inspiring look at resilience, purpose, and staying present on and off the battlefield. So take a breath, open your heart, and settle in. This is Life Well Balanced with Stephen Crook and me, your host, Nick Halp. This episode is sponsored by Balanced Wellbeing LLC, psychiatric and psychological care. If this conversation resonates with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might benefit. Every time you do, it helps us reach more people who need these stories, and it allows us to bring even more incredible guests on Life Well Balanced. Your support really does make this community possible. Thank you. Stephen Crook, my man.
How's it going, Nick? Thanks for having me.
Dude, I'm very excited to have you out here. It's been a pleasure getting to know you over the last few months, and I just want to let you know that I really appreciate who you are and the type of person you are, because when my wife and I first walked into your wife's shop, you guys just were so welcoming and made us feel really good to where we left. And we were like, we need to hang out with those people. And so I'm super excited that we got to keep in touch and then bring you in here and we get to partner on some stuff together and just have you drop some knowledge bombs and get awareness out for what your apparel company does and what your mission is and what you're looking to do to change the world one hat at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. And we did the same thing as you guys came in. We were talking about you guys as you left. You were like, there's some awesome people.
And, we appreciate it.
You know, happenstance, we meet again.
Yeah. Stephen Crook, and your apparel brand is called Through the Storm. And I love that because I feel like all throughout life, we go through our own storms and different seasons. And I just think that's a really good name to hone in on what you're looking to do. But before we dive in on what the whole brand is and everything, let's get the Stephen origin story. What brought you to where you are now? Kind of give us a step-by-step to bring you right to this position here.
Yeah, so I was in the military. I just recently retired May 1st, did a little over 20 years. And in that time, I've had a lot of friends and people close to me within the service try to take their own life or have taken their own life. And I was coming back from a tour from the Middle East, and I told my wife I wanted to do something about it. I just didn't know how to do anything about it. So what do I do? And I landed on apparel. I felt like it was a good way to kind of take a message, spread a message, and then take that message and give back. Our roots and the most like mission-driven part of our brand is to give back, is to always give back, and it's to empower people. We want empowerment, and we wanted to give voice to service members to not make them feel so alone in how they feel, because a lot of times in the military communities, you feel like you got to be an alpha, and you got to just put those weaknesses or those feelings or emotions aside, and there's so much room that you can have on the shelf before the shelf breaks. And there's just nobody's impervious to having something happen to them and just stepping aside. It usually always comes back. So I felt like if you could get people to speak up about what they're feeling, it empowers them and they're not alone in that situation. So that's why I was so adamant about creating a brand that just empowered service members and then helping other service members on the other side of that through donations to nonprofits and charities.
Awesome. Now, I can only imagine being that alpha male in the military setting, but even just growing up, you know, we've always, as men, have been told and trained to keep it locked in, don't let them see you cry. Yeah. And so just growing up in everyday civilian life like that as a man, I can't even comprehend what it would be like in a military setting with a bunch of quote unquote badasses, you know. So you were in the Coast Guard, right?
Yep.
And how many tours did you do?
I did 2 tours in the Middle East. I did one in 2010, kind of in the height of GWAT. And then I did a second tour just kind of recently in 2020 and 2021. Both of them were around 12 to 18 months. So we're over there for quite a bit of time. The experiences, they vary and just based on the campaign. The first time I was over there was a lot different than the second time I was over there. But the perception from the first time I was over there, I wasn't a senior leader. I was more of a deck plate leader, if that makes sense. And then the second time I was over there, I was kind of in a leadership position. So it was different. The perspective was different.
Let's talk about the leadership position, right? So how important is mental health in a leadership role for yourself? And then how important is it in the people that you're leading?
It's huge. Yeah. So as a leader, you're brought up to think that, hey, I can't show any vulnerabilities or I can't show any emotions, that I'm supposed to be some strong rock, which you are. You're supposed to be a rock. But at the same time, you can talk about having a bad day. And if you're doing that to your subordinates or people that are below you, or not below you, or just working with you, they are empowered to feel the same way and empowered to speak. And they can say, hey, if he's having a bad day, it's okay if I have a bad day. And it's okay if I struggle. So I felt like that's so important. And I learned that early by another leader that was open to and transparent to his own emotions. Just saying, hey, I'm not doing good today. I'm scattered. So just kind of bear with me. So I was like, holy cow, this guy's way up here in the chain of things. And he's telling us that it's okay to be struggling for that day. You know what I mean? So I took that and I was like, leaders can do that as well. So it's so important.
Meeting people where they are, being a bit empathetic and everything.
Absolutely.
What do you think, being overseas, what is the biggest struggle when you come back?
That's a great question. Yeah. So for me, the first time was a lot different than the second time. The first time was what you experience when you're over there and what you see based on that culture as opposed to our culture. And to me, in my opinion, it's a 180-degree difference between the two. And when I was over there, you kind of see, we call them third country nationals. So people that live in that country on visas that were confiscated by the government are working on contracts. They work for pennies on the dollar and they're taking everything they have and they're sending it back to their family. And you befriend some of them because they work with you. And I worked with one that was close with me and he hadn't been home for 6 years and he had 6 kids and he was Bangladeshian and he was the nicest human ever. And he would give you anything, even though he didn't have any money, he would give you anything that he could. And learning that what he had, he was happy with. And he decided to take a job in a different country, knowing that he wouldn't see his kids for a long time, just to give them a better way of life because he knew that he could, it was empowering to me. So when I came back here and you go to, say, Target or Starbucks and people are complaining about their lattes not having whole milk in it or they're missing something, I'm like, those are first world problems. You know what I mean? And those are the things that bother me the most coming over here is we don't know how good we have it as Americans in this country. And when they complained and people complained on TV about America not being great, in my opinion, we live in the greatest country in the world. And I've seen some really terrible countries and how they treat their people and their other sects of people, other minorities of people. And we live in an amazing place. And that was the hardest thing to wrap my head around coming back. The second part is I struggle with PTSD a little bit. And I literally coming back home, it just kind of hit a wall at that point. And it was my own inner demons that I had to fight. So it was more about my own inner and personal storms coming back rather than what I saw on the outside.
Now, if there's someone listening here that maybe they were just overseas or overseas not that long ago and they're coming back to a wife or a significant other, can you share one thing that may help them in their relationship of, you said there were things that you had to work through and stuff like that, and I'm sure it played a major toll on your relationship with your wife and everything too. Can you tell that person just a piece of advice of something that may have helped you that could possibly help them coming home and integrating back with their spouse?
Yeah, absolutely. It's chaos at first. because there's so much that you got to catch up on. And it's like the old adage where you can't eat an elephant whole and you got to take it one spoonful at a time if you're going to try to eat an elephant. So I think that was in my mind, the best way that I try to go forward through that, because there's just a lot to catch up on. You know, you got to catch up on getting back with your kids and building a relationship, because you're 18 months away from your kids and your wife. So now you have to reestablish that physical relationship with your kids and your wife, and being a dad and a husband all over again. And then taking that leadership role, and from being just a straight leader for everybody on that ship or unit, and just removing it and just focusing on your family. And it's balance. It's all about balance, because there's no balance over there. You have to balance it here.
Structure.
Yeah.
Just structure. I think that's a major part of coming back from something like that is you don't have that structure. And I was just talking to someone the other day about that. And they're like, you're just so structured all the time.
Yeah.
And then, it was yesterday. It was a guy, and this is a little bit different. He just retired from Major League Baseball. And I was like, do you think it's somewhat like the military, because you have so much structure and everything's planned your whole day, and then you get done and then you're like, now what do I do? And it's definitely different from the military, because it's a whole different kind of structure. But we were just having that conversation of there is no balance. It's just now you have to figure out basically how to relive and make your own choices. And then you were saying not cut that leadership out from your family, but lead in a different way and get back to that team dynamic instead of just here's what's going to happen and here's what you need to do kind of leadership.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm learning to do that again through retirement, because, like every day you have a job to do, and you know what you're going to be doing, and you have a mindset. So when you remove yourself from something you've done for so long, for 20 years, you really have to reestablish yourself and find a new regime or a new consistency or structure, and you have to create that yourself. It's not there for you anymore. So that part is a little bit as a new course of action for me that I'm trying to figure out as well.
Now, do you have any kind of identity shift from that? Do you feel like you lost any of your identity, or are you shifting into a new identity?
It's funny you ask me that, because I talked about that early in my career with my wife. And I said a lot of times people get so caught up in the military identity, and that's okay. It's huge, and it's amazing to put yourself in a situation where you're serving your country, but it's not you're not your whole identity. And I always kind of removed that after probably E5. I removed that identity from me and made my identity my family. That was my identity. I wanted to be a great father and a great husband. So I would say that that removal in my life has helped me through the transition to retirement. The hard part is the structure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The structure is no longer there, but the identity doesn't bother me anymore. I just work on being a good dad and a good husband all the time. But that was a big play in my career, that transition to remove that identity early in life. Made it so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not attached to it, and it opens your mind up being able to be that father and husband that you want to be.
Exactly.
What would you say a life well balanced looks like for you?
Yeah. So I crave balance. My wife kind of thrives in the chaos of the world, and that's why we're so good with each other. I've always been that way. I don't know if you're familiar with horoscopes. I'm not big on them, but when you look at them, and it just kind of makes sense sometimes. So my sign is literally a balance, the scales.
Okay.
So literally, if my life is out of balance, I'm in absolute turmoil. So I always try to work for that balance in life. So if it's out of whack whatsoever, I usually don't thrive.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell my wife that all the time, because she's always just flying. And I'm like, hey, we need to slow down, because, the kids need this, and we're always just going 24/7 on our jobs. And let's just kind of rein back a little bit and just kind of think about the family. You know what I mean? And then she's like, yeah. So we always had that checks and balances between the two of us. And I know when I'm out of balance, because I feel it, I get the anxiety. This isn't right. I need to get back to balance. So for me, it's just checking yourself and knowing, hey, something's going on, that there's some anxiety here. What is it? And it's like that cognitive behavioral stuff where you look into yourself, like, is this emotion good? What is this emotion? And then you work with that emotion. And that emotion is anxiety. And I'm like, okay, everything's out of whack.
Once you feel a little anxious, you're like, okay, I need to recalibrate.
Yep.
Now, your wife runs her own hat shop too. She calls it a hat bar, right?
Yeah, at the beginning, we were kind of a hat bar, and that mostly catered to women or females. And we pivoted and made it a custom hat shop. So that way we're not alienating the other population, the 50% of males. So now we're more like just a hat shop. But yeah, she has a strong passion for custom hats.
How does that work with parenting 3 kids, having a healthy marriage, and both of you being entrepreneurs running businesses?
Yes, there's no blueprint. It's kind of like you learn on the way, and there's going to be, like, for us, there were so many pitfalls and learning experiences in that. And we've gotten to the point now where we're on the tracks pretty good and we know what to expect. But in the beginning, it was hard to keep that balance. It was very, very hard. But I would say it's just intention. You just got to be very intentional about it, knowing that you have to turn your job off. Because being entrepreneurs, most people say you never turn it off. To a certain extent, you just got to put it in the background.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then focus on your family.
Now, how do you find balance with being a girl dad? You have 2 boys and then a girl, right?
I do. But the boys are pretty much, they're on like auto mode right now because they're 18 and 20.
18 and 20.
Yeah, and like early, they were close together when they were born. So as they grew up, it was just they had a buddy with them the whole time. And Audrey being 12, there's a gap between her 2 brothers and her. She didn't have that, so she's almost like a single child. She just didn't have a friend with her. And now it's hard because you feel like you alienate her when you're just trying to focus on other things, and you always feel guilty. I need to focus on her, but also need to be making money, you know what I mean? And try to give her a life that is good. So that balance is tough in a way, but she doesn't get lost completely. She does get lost sometimes in the shadows, but we do our best to just navigate that as best we can. And like I said, there's no blueprint to it. So you just kind of learn as you go.
My little girl, she's almost 2. And this morning when I was leaving, she's like, I want to go to your office too. And I was like, no, you got to stay here. And I said, you know why I go work, right? And now her thing is so we can have stuff. And I'm like, not so we can have stuff, so we can have food and be able to do stuff together. And I said, Dada gets to make a difference. And she's like, okay, bye. So I try to, even though she's so young, I try to let her know that going to work isn't just I'm leaving.
Yeah.
It's we're going to work for a purpose.
Yeah.
And what you and I both do makes a difference. And so I'm trying to instill that in her at a
That's awesome.
young age.
Yeah, so she doesn't just think you're out there buying toys for her.
Yeah, just doing whatever.
Yeah.
Let's jump back into your brand a bit and everything behind that. So we're talking about military veterans and suicide. And I found this study, and it was in 2022, and it said there were on average 131.2 suicides per day among U.S. adults. And out of that, around 20% were military veterans. That's like 17 to 20 a day. So how do you raise that awareness with your brand, and what do you do to get that out there a little more?
Sure. Yeah. So whenever we do a lot of different things. So if I'm doing, say, a pop-up, for instance, just having those conversations one-on-one veterans is big. One, because they know someone's advocating for them, right? And then you're also shining a light on some of the charities and nonprofits that we work with that they didn't know exist. So sometimes, if you're not familiar with how the VA works, they're amazing with what they do. They're just a little understaffed. So when a veteran is struggling mentally, or a veteran is struggling, period, when they go to the VA, there's a little bit of a line. And if they need help, it's a possibility they may have to wait. So there's amazing charities out there that we've worked with that can usually get help with them in a day or 30 minutes or whatever, however that looks like. It's usually very quick. So that's another way of advocating for the veteran, and also bringing to light these charities that are doing amazing things for veterans. And we've worked with others that aren't just for veterans specific, it's for the general population, like Island Dolphin Care, for instance. But they do amazing things, and it's just shining the light on them and letting people know that these charities exist and they're helping a lot of people. When I'm just walking around as a billboard as my brand, and I use social media to advocate for it as well.
Because you also partner with Boulder Crest Foundation, Canines for Warriors, and Task Force Hydro One, correct?
Yep.
And so how do those partnerships work? How do you work well with those organizations?
So the first charity I actually started working with is Canines for Warriors, and they're here in kind of our own backyard. They have 2 headquarters, one in Nocatee and then one in San Antonio. And what they do is they take dogs from high kill shelters, they train them to make sure the temperament's right and whatnot. And it's usually a 12-month training process. After they train them, they pair them with a veteran. The veteran stays on campus for like 30 days, gets to know the dog, and then that veteran leaves with a trained service dog. And it's an amazing, amazing program. So what we've done with them in the past is
Give all the dogs hats.
we've donated money for them in the past, and we've also sponsored their golf tournaments. They do a 9/11 golf tournament every year. So we've done that as well. We recently gave enough money to be a sponsor for a dog we named Bolt, and Bolt was given to a Army veteran. And that's kind of how we worked with Canines for Warriors. Boulder Crest Foundation, that was a collaboration with a fitness event that we do every year to end suicide in the Coast Guard. It's called the 1790 Challenge. And every sale of the hat that we did for that specific hat went to Boulder Crest Foundation. And it's within the Coast Guard community, and it's the whole month of August. And if you complete this, you get a patch and a hat, but you pay for the hat, of course. But the hat, the money, 100% of the proceeds went to Boulder Crest Foundation. And Boulder Crest Foundation does a week-long, very in-depth PTSD group outing with veterans. And they go out this cool ranch, and they've had an awesome community. And when they leave there, they have a community of brothers they can talk to if they're struggling. And those guys will show up at your doorstep. So those are just some of the things that we do with some of the charities where we work with.
Very cool. Now, you said you're a 1-for-1. Can you talk about what you mean by that?
Yep. So every hat that is purchased, we donate to specific charities. Either it's going to be Canines for Warriors, or it's going to be like Boulder Crest Foundation. So we have kind of a group. It's growing, but there's specific ones. We vet them. We make sure that the money's going to the right places, and we trust these charities. So if you think of it like that, we're giving $48 or $50 to every charity for every hat. That's a pretty large donation. And just recently we did Wounded Warrior Umpire Association. And what they do is they take veterans that want to jump into the game and give themselves another purpose of baseball and teach them how to be umpires.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
Give them a little more structure again.
Yep.
When it comes to the suicide, have you personally had friends that have committed suicide from the military and everything?
Yes. And the biggest story with me would be, I have a great friend that we were stationed together on 2 different occasions, and we hit it off very young as young coasties. And he traveled to another unit that I ended up going back to. And he was kind of going through some things family-wise. And I get a call at 3 a.m. and it's a third-party suicide prevention military resource. I said, hey, do you know blah, blah, blah? I said, yes. He's on the other line. He said he would only want to talk to you. So I'm like, all right. So I answer. I said, hey, are you good? He's like, no, I'm not. I said, I'm coming to get you. So I literally drove to his house, picked him up, and he lived with us for a year and a half. Did not let him leave. He stayed with us until we got him the proper help, and he was good to go. He's thriving now. He's doing really good. But that was a big one because he was right there on the cusp of doing something permanent. You know what I mean? That he just never get back. And that one hit home pretty hard. And I've had just recently, when I was overseas, there was a girl on my boat who was very young, was close to my kid's age, and she tried. And that was another one that kind of hit home hard. I'm 40-something years old at that time. And it just kind of hit really close to home because she was so young. And I'm like, oh, no. So that's when I came back and wanted to do something about it. I just felt very on purposed to do something. So those are the 2 big ones that hit home the most.
Yeah, for me, it really resonates, the whole suicide prevention and everything. And that's one reason I wanted to bring you on and see if we can help get your brand out there and stuff too, is because I personally have friends and family that have committed suicide as well. And actually one was a military veteran and everything too. So I just appreciate everything that you're doing. Can you tell me a time when you helped a veteran or an organization that really stuck out to you that you'll remember for the
Yeah.
rest of your life?
Yeah, sure. I was, and the one that I just referred to with my close friend, and then also kind of just recently, about 3 a.m., I got a phone call from a supervisor within the unit. Said, "Hey, I have somebody that's really struggling, and I don't know how to help him." And they leaned on me because I was pretty good at just taking that person and handing them safely to somebody that's going to help. And I knew the steps that it needed to go through to get them as quickly as possible and ask those important questions. And he was young as well. And I got on the phone with him, and he just literally, he could barely talk. He could barely say 3 sentences. And I said, "Hey, man, I'm coming to get you. We're going to get you to the right place. Do you have any guns or weapons in your house?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, I want you to go to another room. I want you to wait for us to get there. And you're going to be on the phone the whole time with us." So I was so far away. The guy that called me said, "I'm going to go get him." I said, "Do it." So he went and grabbed him. I said, "Once you get a hold of him," this is through another line. I said, "Once you get a hold of him, make sure you take him immediately to the hospital and get him help." So we did. And we got him there. He was inpatient for 7 days being evaluated. He got out and came to me the next day and said, "I want to thank you for being present enough to understand the questions that needed to be asked and put me in a situation where I could get help, because I wouldn't have done it myself." And the people that helped him were afraid to ask him those questions. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is you have to ask those questions. That's the most important aspect of it. They're hard questions to ask. They need to be asked.
Mm-hmm.
So that one really touched with me and kind of stuck with me for a long time.
So if there's someone out there listening right now, and whether they're a veteran, whether they're not, and they feel like they're at rock bottom or in that place where they're thinking about possibly ending their life or taking their life, what would you tell them, or what questions would you ask?
So if I was there with them and I didn't know, and I felt like there were flags, red flags, I would just straight out ask them, "Are you thinking about committing suicide?" And then if they answer yes or no, or if they're hesitant, like you just kind of based on what their emotions are. Typically, if somebody feels like they're going to take their own life, they'll tell you, because that's a cry for help. And they say yes, then you give them a safety plan. You say, "What guns or weapons do you have in the house? Do you have any pills or anything in the house?" And if they tell you, then you can't just take it from them, but you can secure them away from their weapons or guns until they get Baker acted, pretty much. So it's basically removing them from that situation and then getting them to medical help. Like, you're literally escorting somebody to medical help, to a medical professional. I'm not a therapist, but I can recognize signs. So my biggest thing is to make sure they're safe and ask them those important questions, and then escort them to the next safest outlet.
Now, so if there's one thing you can say to someone that we haven't talked about, whether it's a veteran struggling, whether it's a husband coming back or a wife coming back from tour, what's something that you would share with that audience if they're just struggling a little bit? Or if there's anything that I'm not even thinking about asking that you may know, like what's one word of sage advice that you would give someone?
I would ask if they've ever reached out to guidance, therapy, or help that way. Because a lot of times your spouse, you lean on them to be your therapist, and they're not your therapist, and it mangles your relationship. So if you have a third party person that's unbiased to your relationship with your wife and your kids, and they are listening to you, you feel like you have an outlet from somebody that's very unbiased on the outside. And it's tremendous. What therapy can do for people. Absolutely tremendous. And it's got such a negative connotation. Most people think it's like the worst thing you can do. No, even if you don't, it's a person that's listening to you. It's giving you sage advice, and it's like listening to your problems and understanding you, and then giving you a solution to how to fix those problems, or even just to emotionally deal with those problems. So to me, I would say, hey, have you gotten therapy? Maybe you should.
Yeah, it's even scientifically proven now that talking to someone and releasing that energy and releasing those feelings has a health benefit to it on your mind, on your body, and on your spirit. And with that negative connotation of therapy, I think that people just need to get over it, and no one's judging. Like, it's not a judgmental thing. No one's gonna laugh at you anymore to get help or to talk to someone. And I think we need to move past that stigma that if you're going to therapy, there's something wrong.
Yeah, I totally agree. Have you ever seen that Netflix show that came out, and it's with the guy from Superbad, and he brought his therapist and he did a whole
Yeah,
documentary. It is so good. When I saw that show, that documentary,
Jonah Hill, right?
it was Jonah. Yeah. And what was so great about that documentary, excuse me, was that they gave you so many different little tools to use on your everyday. Like, that guy was literally giving you golden nuggets.
Yeah.
If you're watching that, saying these are how you deal with certain things. And I'm like, this is brilliant. You know, this dude's giving out advice that he's not getting paid for.
Studs.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, when we first watched that, my wife and I watched it, and we were like, "Oh, let's check this out." When we put on the TV, we try to put on something chill or something educational, or except when we're with our 16-year-old and we're watching some kind of reality dating show and just laughing at all the people that do need mental health therapy. But Stutz, that documentary was really good, and you didn't expect it coming from Jonah Hill, who played Superbad. And what I appreciated about that too is how much he opened up about his struggles and everything. And I think that's awesome that he put that out there to kind of raise that awareness for mental health therapy and talking to people.
And it affected him so much so that he wanted to make literally a documentary about his therapist and shine a light on this man. You know what I mean? This has helped me tremendously. So that helps. That goes so far into just knocking down the walls and those barriers of stigmatism on those things. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, everybody, be honest with you, I think everybody needs therapy. Everybody does.
I agree. And people think you have to have some major event, but you don't. We had a guy on here, Rob Swimer, and he was talking about adversity and how there's small adversities that just stack up over time. It doesn't have to be this major thing. And I think that if people understood that therapy's fine and it's good for you.
It is.
And it's not, now, therapy is not dumping on your spouse or just going to your friends and just dumping how horrible your life is. I like how you said an unbiased opinion. Now, venting with your spouse and everything is completely fine, but what I would recommend is give it a time limit. And, hey, I'm going to vent for 10 minutes and then we're done, and then we can hang out, have our dinner, whatever it may be. So you do therapy?
I did, yes. It was one of my journeys coming back from the Middle East was therapy.
So what are, with getting your brand out there, and I'm sure for you it's not, you didn't create this brand to make a bunch of money. It's strictly about the mission and the message that you're looking to deliver. What challenges have you come across? I noticed you posted something the other day making it clear of the 1-for-1 hat giveaway and matching or what you call it. So what are some of the challenges that you run into and overcome during your everyday?
So, like, for me right now, it is, one, it's money, because you only have so much money to get your name out there. So it's very grassroots, organic growth. And two, I just recently put an ad out that has my hats stacked on top of one another in a kind of a black background. And it says in bold font, "These hats save veterans." That's bold. That's a very bold claim. And in the ad copy, I explain who we are, what we're doing, and how we're doing it. But most people don't read the ad copy. They just see the picture. And it's meant to be disruptive because this is a very sensitive topic. In order to break through the noise, I figure I needed something disruptive. So I've gotten so much hate on Facebook, on comments. Mostly, and shockingly, it's from veterans. The veterans are calling me out and they're saying, "Hey, you are not doing what you say you are," or whatever. And there's no context to it, right? They don't understand. They never gone to my website, never gone to my social media. They don't know who I'm giving to. So it's kind of like, why are you blanket saying these statements and not knowing the full context of it? And so that's why I came out with that video. And I feel like I've had to defend my mission on all these comments to these veterans saying, hey, I am who I say I am. I am a veteran and I feel your pain and I'm trying to help. And I understand the skepticism. I get that because they've run into a lot of organizations that say they help veterans and they don't. So I completely understand the skepticism. But at the same time, it's like, hey, just do a little homework and look, just see what we're doing, how we're doing it, and then make a decision whether you want to say something.
So how does that affect your mental health? Do you let that bother you? Do you
Man,
keep it moving? Because it has to feel somewhat personal, even though it's not. How does that affect your mental health?
yeah, I had this conversation. Usually every time I get a nasty comment from a veteran, I usually hit my buddy back, which is my wife, my best friend. And I say, hey, what do you think about this? What are some of the feedbacks you feel like need to come out of this? And she's usually really good about, well, you need to be bold. You need to tell them what you're really doing and just be bold. I wanted to take the corporate approach. Thanks for your feedback. I understand what you're saying, all the things, but she's more bold in her tactics. And she's like, just tell them what you're doing, who you are, and how you're doing it, and just be unapologetic. I'm like, okay. So I took that approach. But yes, it does. Every single day you kind of doubt, why are my audience, the veterans, so salty towards what I'm trying to do? I don't understand it. And sometimes it's like you feel like you're going the wrong path. But if I'm getting this much disruption and maybe this much turmoil, then maybe I'm doing something right. So there's two ways to look at it. And for the longest time, I'm like, I must be doing it wrong. I need to pull this ad.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife's like, no, don't pull it. It's probably doing what you needed to do. Even though you have a bunch of trolls or a bunch of veterans that are hateful, just keep doing it. Said, right.
And you never know, maybe one of those veterans are going through it and they're just angry, and then they reach out to your post, and then you're like, this is what I'm doing, this is how we're doing it, and it could change something in their life for them. You never know.
Yeah. And that was the purpose of that whole ad. I even said it in one of my comments. I said, if this ad saves one person, then it's paid for itself over and over and over and over and over and over again forever. So I understand why you're coming at me. I totally understand the skepticism, but this brand's bigger than me. It's the mission itself is huge. And I just want to help as many people as I can. And if it just helps one person, then what it was there for.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole purpose of it. I did that for a while. And I also went on a fitness journey. And between the two of them, it just it shaped me differently. It changed my perspective on everything. And it made me more resilient in that way. And that therapist gave me all sorts of tools on how to deal with a lot of inner rage, PTSD, and like cognitive behavioral therapy. And then my fitness journey gave me tools for resilience. Because you look at runners like David Goggins, for instance, people that can just push through things mentally, because your body, it wants to tell your brain no. And your brain, if you trick your brain to saying you're good, that's resilience. It's resilience 101. So that was a big one for me too. And I literally, for me, I love to work out. It's my thing. I love it. I do it 7 days a week. And if I don't do it, then I get a little anxious. So for me, that's part of my structure in my regime. And it's big in my life. And I advocate for it all the time.
It's good for your mental health in general too, just from what it does to your brain and everything, and the chemicals it releases and everything like that. Now, with working out every day, do you have other routines or practices that you do that you would want to share that you think people should incorporate in their daily habits and daily routines?
Yeah, so I got in early through the therapy thing. I got into this like breathing therapy, like box breathing, and that has worked great. I don't know if everybody's familiar with box
I haven't
breathing.
heard of box breathing, I don't think.
Yeah, so the military special forces used it to help lower the heart rates. And all it is a 2-second breath in, hold for 2 seconds, a 2-second breath out, hold for 2 seconds, and you just repeat it over and over. And it literally just kind of declutters your mind. You just focus on what's right here and present. And it helps you just get right back to center.
Interesting. Anything else?
I started meditation about 8 years ago, and I usually do it in the mornings. Wake up in the morning, do like a 5-minute meditation. That's worked out a lot. That's great. If I don't do that, I feel anxious as well.
Some days when I just feel like I have a busy day, I'll just stop for 5-10 minutes and do a meditation.
Yeah.
Or once I get the baby to bed, I'll sit down and meditate for a little bit. It just really does wonders for your mind, your body, your spirit, all of the above.
Yeah, you feel more clear. You know what I mean? You feel like you can kind of just go out through your day and be good and not have things bother you as much anymore.
And I think the reason is because we're all so inundated with everything in life, and we're just running and running and running, and we're being reactive, and we don't take that time to just stop and breathe and just be present in the moment. And I think a lot of what we do, we're not breathing correctly throughout our day.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so with the box breathing that you do, and then meditation, just even counting your breaths and everything just to slow down, I think just taking in those breaths in general make you feel a million times better.
Yeah, I agree. And your brain needs oxygen, right? So you're pushing that oxygen to your brain. When your brain has oxygen, it's at its optimus level, and you can start thinking logically and not with emotion. And part of that breathing aspect of it that you mentioned. Yeah.
Now, do you do any manifestation or anything, or visualizations while you meditate or anything like that?
No, I just try to focus on just having no clutter in my head and just, just having the present moment and just thinking about my breath. So that way, when I walk away from there's not a million things going through my head, because I'm guilty of it probably as much as anybody else. It's kind of you living in your own head. You know what I mean? You have all these things just hitting you from all these different angles. And I remember when I first tried it, that it was hard for me to even focus for 3 seconds without something popping in my head that I needed to do, or that I was going to do, or that had already passed that I shouldn't. And I was like, holy cow, my mind is so distracted. And that's when I realized how important it is that I should be doing this. And as you get better at it, you can kind of clear your mind, and you don't have those thoughts kind of hit you from everywhere anymore. So that was a big one for me. It was like, holy cow, my brain is just full of just things all the time hitting me from different angles. So that was wild. And they tell you that when you start this, you're going to have a hard time focusing, which is true because you're always in your head. But once you get really good at it, it's cool.
Yeah, I'm the same way, because I'm always like, go, 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 go. And I got to do this and I got to do that. And so when I first started meditating, it was just so hard to sit, and I still struggle a lot, but you got to just let that thought go.
Yeah.
There was, I think a pastor said something about it's okay to let birds fly over your head, just don't let them build a nest in your hair or something.
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of how it is with your thoughts and meditation, is like, just let them keep flying. It's okay you think of it, just don't bring it down into everything you're.
Yeah. And that was, as you mentioned, that was part of the journey of meditation. Is if you have these thoughts that get in your head, you're supposed to just let them pass and not judge yourself for having those thoughts. That's hard to do too. You know what I mean? You're like, man, why did I just think I should be focusing? But having those thoughts and just let them pass, it's teaching your brain to have an emotion throughout the day and being okay with that emotion just passing by. That's what it's kind of teaching you to do, which is awesome, because then you can look at it from the outside in and say, I just had this anger for no reason whatsoever, and I just let it. So that's how you're just kind of teaching your brain to rewire itself to do that, which is awesome.
Anger's a tricky thing. Lack of sleep really gets you angry.
Yes, it does.
And so I've been really focusing on anger lately, just for myself. Not so much, I'm not like really yelling at people, at least I don't think. Call my wife, she might tell you that I'm going too crazy about the dishes at home or something.
Yeah.
But I catch myself like, why am I so angry?
Yeah.
What is bothering me so much? And my mom was staying with us once, and something so stupid, the cat was going and eating the dog food, and I was like losing my mind.
Yeah.
And my mom goes, why does that bother you so much? And I had no answer for it.
Yeah.
And so I think I say all that to say, once you become aware of the anger, and then you just let it go, like, why is this making me angry?
Yeah.
You feel a sense of relief, and the anger just
Yeah.
really goes away because you're like, this is so stupid.
Yeah. But you're right. There's levels of self-awareness, like the beginner level of self-awareness is basically I'm getting mad at things and I have no idea why I'm getting mad at them. You know what I mean? Like I continue to be mad. And then the other level above that is I'm getting mad. I know I'm getting mad. I just don't know why I'm getting mad. And then the level of that is I'm getting mad. I know I'm getting mad. I shouldn't be getting mad. And just let it pass. So there's absolute levels to it. And like the more that you train your brain to understand those things, the better the level you get. Become a
Yeah.
ninja. You know what I mean?
Are you familiar with a guy named Mickey Singer?
No.
He's based out of Alachua, so he's like right outside of Gainesville. But he wrote The Untethered Soul and Living Untethered. And he's been featured on Tony Robbins and Oprah and all kinds of stuff. And he's like a sage in his field. And what he talks about in Living Untethered is he says, the moment in front of you is not bothering you. You're bothering yourself
Yeah.
about the moment in front of you. And when I heard that, it was like a light bulb. And it was just like, oh my gosh, that's true.
That's good. Yeah.
And I'll start getting angry about stuff. And like, again, dishes. I have my 16-year-old, so I got a 16-year-old. I'm sure you know how it is
Oh,
with
yeah.
just tons of dishes and
Yeah.
stuff. And so I catch myself like getting angry about these dishes. And my wife just looks at me and she goes, the dishes in front of you aren't bothering you.
Yeah.
You're bothering yourself about the dishes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would check him out, Michael Singer.
Michael
He's really
Singer.
good. He's
That's
got
good
some good
stuff.
stuff. So you were talking about emotions and handling emotions. How does, this is a selfish question for myself, how does an alpha manly man handle emotions but still be a manly man? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, my dad had raised me to be a stoic rock, and his dad raised him to be the same way. So it's systemic, you know what I mean? As most men are raised to be that way. You can still be a role model and be everything you need to be and still let people know that emotion is okay. But you can't just start crying when you spill milk. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Crying over spilled milk. But I think if it's relative and it's okay for that person to have that emotion as an alpha male, then have it. But if it's not okay to have that emotion as an alpha male, then don't. And don't let others know that you're feeling a certain way is the wrong way. That you can't just hide those things. And that was a big part of my early fatherhood was I acted like my dad and grandfather is I didn't want them to see me angry or sad or any of those things. And as I cruise through life, I'm like, what am I teaching my son? I need to be teaching my son how to be a good partner to his wife, on how to be a good dad to their children. And that includes being true to yourself with your own emotions and saying it's okay for you to feel a certain way. Because I don't want them to feel, as they get older, locked into just being this machine of unemotion and struggling, and then it just comes out because it's going to. It simmers, and then it boils, and it just comes out. And I saw it with my dad, and I saw it with my grandfather, and I didn't want to be that way. I realized it halfway into my fatherhood, and I did not want to pass that on to my kids. And my son my 20-year-old just recently got a tattoo. He's had several of them now. He's got a whole arm sleeve, right? Don't approve of it, but it's his own life, whatever he wants to do. At the very top of this tattoo, he's got something that I thought was amazing. And I was so proud of him for putting that, even though I don't approve of tattoo, I was proud of him for putting it on him. And it was self-love. If you cannot love yourself, it's like you have a wound. And if you don't fix that wound, you're going to bleed on everybody else. And just knowing that if you love yourself first, you're able to love others as well, genuine and authentically. And you're able to show emotion, and you know that you can, and be confident in that.
I didn't even know you were going to say that, and I wore this shirt,
It's
worked out
true.
perfectly.
It's true. And it took me forever to understand that because most men don't want to talk about self-love. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They think it's selfish. And it's true, though. If you can't love yourself, you can't provide love for your family like you
Yeah.
should authentically, or like what you should be. Because you're always going to have that bitterness within yourself. Like, yeah, I don't like myself. I don't like myself. It's always going to boil over somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And I tell people all the time too that I've talked to some guys who actually pulled me aside and were talking about wanting to commit suicide, but then they were also talking about wanting a spouse. And I would say all the time, you're not going to find love until you love yourself.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
And also too, if you're feeling that way where you're thinking about committing suicide, getting into a relationship is not going to be what fixes it.
Mm-mm.
The work is on the inside before it even comes out to the outside.
Yeah.
Now, if you had any books, like one book that you would recommend or one podcast or something, what is one of those?
And ooh, like a self-help book, or
Any
even,
kind, whatever.
yeah, okay. To me, like one of the most inspirational books that I've read is Marcus Aurelius Meditations. And it's Gregory Hayes is the narrator. So it's written so the common man can understand it. And I don't know if you're familiar with Stoicism.
Yeah, that book's actually on my list.
Okay, it's so good. Like I went through that book, and within the first 5 pages, I was pulling out a highlighter and I was just marking everything.
Nice.
I was like, holy cow, holy cow, holy cow. Some of the things that's said in there is just, it makes so much sense. And people think about Stoicism of just being like this closed off emotion. It's actually about having emotions not affect you as much as they should. It's not about not feeling emotion. It's about feeling the emotion that is right in that moment and saying, okay, I'm supposed to be feeling this emotion. That's what Stoicism is. So that book blew me away, and I got it on a whim. I was like, oh, this looks cool. I got it and read it. I was like, cow,
Yeah.
it's so good.
Yeah, I was just reading a book not long ago that was talking about that book.
It's good. Yeah.
And so we're kind of coming up into the end here. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, if you're not familiar, the number 988 is the suicide self hotline, and it's huge. It's government funded, it's free, and if anybody out there is struggling, call them immediately. They're qualified medical representatives that can help and walk you through getting you to the other side of help.
Awesome. Awesome. Now we're going to, oh, well, everyone that's listening, how can they find you?
Through the Storm.shop is my website, and then Through the Storm.apparel is my Instagram. And I try to do as much social media as I can, even though I'm so uncomfortable doing it.
Yeah.
But I try to do as much as I can, and I try to tell the story of what we're doing, how we're doing it.
Awesome. Awesome. So we're going to come into, we call it a speed round.
Sure.
And we call it balanced or unbalanced. And so I'm going to ask you a question, and you're going to tell me if it's balanced or unbalanced.
Okay.
You can elaborate more if you want. If
Yeah.
we want to just keep moving, that's completely cool too. So let's jump in here, all right? Balanced or unbalanced? Running a business and parenting teenagers at the same time.
Balanced.
Balanced or unbalanced? Crying in the gym after a tough week.
Unbalanced.
Skipping family dinner to fulfill a customer order.
Unbalanced.
Wearing your own brand every day.
That's balanced.
Telling your community that you're struggling.
Ooh, that's unbalanced.
Why do you say that?
Well, I feel like I could do a better job at it. If I'm having a bad day in what I like, we discussed earlier about the hate you get from veterans, the person I go to is my wife. I'm not letting my community know that is my struggle in that moment.
Okay.
So I feel like I don't portray it that well. Or if I have a bad day in sales, or I'm not having a sale in a while, that's another thing I don't really talk about.
That makes sense. Balanced or unbalanced? Launching a new product line on family vacation.
Man, balanced.
Letting someone lead so that you can rest.
Balanced. I'm good with delegation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Is there anything else that you want to share? Any tips, any advice, anything that you need to put out there for us?
Nothing I can think of, but I want to say thank you guys for having me here.
Oh,
You're awesome.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. We appreciate it. It's like I said, man, you're a good energy to be around, and,
Thank
and
you.
I always appreciate just sitting down with you and chatting and shooting the breeze.
I appreciate that.
So thank you, brother.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you.
This podcast is made possible by Balanced Wellbeing. At Balanced Wellbeing, we understand that caring for mental health isn't just personal, it's professional too. Whether you're an individual listener feeling overwhelmed or you manage a healthcare or senior living facility, mental health support matters more than ever. Balanced Wellbeing provides compassionate psychiatry and psychotherapy services both in facility, via telehealth, and in outpatient clinics throughout Florida, making it easy for individuals, staff, residents, and families to get the care they need when they need it. For facility professionals, we can support your teams and residents directly, helping you foster a healthier, more resilient environment. And for our listeners, if you're ready for therapy or just need someone to talk to, Balanced Wellbeing is here to meet you exactly where you are. Visit balancedwellbeingllc.com or call 877-779-2429 to learn more and take that next step toward balance for yourself, your team, or your community.